Bora Boye. So, Wakanda is everywhere, but Oakland is the headquarters. And I really like the fact that the diasporic headquarters of Wakanda is right, here in the Bay Area. It's a physical location, and I like it because I also enjoy the work of Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell, who pioneered this Gnostic or psychospiritual interpretation of mythology that says that all the sacred texts of the world are metaphors for psychological and spiritual phenomena. So, if you read the Bible or you read the Quran or, Hindu mythology, the Vedas or the Sutras, the idea is that those locations and those characters aren't real places and people. They're symbols, and they represent spiritual or psychic energy. And as they interact with one another, it's talking about, different kinds of psychological and spiritual transformation that you go through as an individual or as a group of individuals. And I like it, I can accept it on a certain level in terms of what it means to the collective imagination, and understanding that the ways in which people have conceptualized their story and their existence and the journey of human existence, it makes sense that in the cultural context, that these psychological frameworks would come into play. They would influence how the story gets told, and you can see lots of parallels between different kinds of groups of people who are forest people who are ocean people who are mountain people. There are some motifs, and there are some sort of developmental parallels that you will see, right? And it helps us to understand one another. But at the same time, Wakanda, even though Wakanda is Wakanda is a perfect example, because Wakanda is an imaginary place, but they made the headquarters of Wakanda, the diasporic headquarters of Wakanda, the only real place that exists on the map, right? Oakland, right? It's a real place, and it comes out of the mind of a person, right? And in this case, he is from Oakland, Kugler. Now, what this means to me as a practitioner of Orisha lifestyle is that, I go into our sacred text, and in the Holy Odu Ogundameji, for example, he tells us about, a spectrum of divinities, right? And so it starts off with a riddle. Or Orumila has assembled all of the Orisha, and he wants to know from them who can accompany his devotee on a long journey, even across the sea, without ever turning back. One by one, each of the divinities, believes that they can do it, but one by one, they fail. And the other divinities point out to them that you can't do it. And why do they all fail? They all fail because after they've traveled for a long time, then they're posed the question, well, what happens if you got to your homeland, the land of your forefathers, the place of your origin and your source, where you are the divinity of the palace, where you're the founder of the kingdom, where your power reaches its zenith, your influence is beyond compare, and they offer you all of the things that empower you, all of the things that refresh your energy, all of the things that venerate you and elevate you to a higher and higher and higher level. What would you do? Of course, each time the divinities say, well, I would stop and I would consume those things. Why? Because that's going back to their axis mundi. That's going back to their navel, their beginning place. That's going back to the womb of their existence. To say, and then they're going to not only go there, but they're going to consume the things that renew their power. They have to go back. It's like time. It's going to come back to that place of its beginning, and it's going to be reborn again, right? So they have to come back to that place, right? No matter how far a river flows, it never forgets its source. So each of the Orisha have their source. But the reason why this matters is because the riddle ends with even Orunmila himself failing to meet the challenge. And then the divinities are confused. They say, well, if you can't do it and you pose the riddle, then who can? And Orunmila says, the only one who can do it is Ori. Ori is the only Orisha, the only one that can continue the journey, no matter where the devotee goes, even across the ocean, right? And Ori will never depart from, its devotee. That matters because it lets you know that if you really want to go back to the power of Shango, you got to go back to where Shango is from. If you want to know the real power of Yemaja, you have to go back to where Yemaja is from. That divinity is associated with a place. It's associated with a people. There are specific things in the soil, in the trees, in the air, in the water that are going to energize you, for lack of better terms, through osmosis. You're gonna absorb the power of that divinity fully in that place, right? But the supreme divinity that empowers all of those divinities and makes any of them possible in your life or anyone's life is your Ori. So the only way for you to even come into contact with the power of the Orisha is to embody your own indwelling spirit. And that is, that's where self-discovery again becomes paramount. It precedes everything. There are limits to what Obatala can do. There are limits to what Ogun can do. There are limits to what Oshun can do. It's only your Ori that has unlimited scope of power and influence in your life and your development. The biggest problem that you have is discovering what is Ori. Who are you really? Where do you come from? What is your source? What is your origin? Right? Because Shango has his own. Obatala has their own. But you're not Shango. You're not Ogun. You are not Eshu. You are you. And so the only way to really embody and manifest the fullness of who you are is to start with discovering who you are. Once you have made that discovery, then you can go about the business of developing a daily practice that's going to hone and refine your natural gifts and talents, like precision, every single day. And then once you've gotten yourself up to a level of excellence and precision, then you can go about the business of focusing on your service, delivering on the ancestral promise, delivering on your natural gifts and talents, showing up fully 100% in the way that only you can for the people who you are destined to serve. That is the work of the Orisha Lifestyle Academy. That's what we dedicate ourselves to, and that's what we invite you to enjoy when you join us in our own living, growing, breathing manifestation of Wakanda as it is yet to be seen in many, many different manifestations and iterations. So I invite you to join the Orisha Lifestyle Academy. Take advantage of this opportunity to grow, transform, and transform the world. Not only transform your life, but transform the world to make it what you see in your mind and in your spirit. Aboru aboye, aboshishe.